Belgium has arrested 3 men suspected of being involved in the 1994 Rwanda Genocide. The arrests come as survivors of the genocide have demanded an acceleration in the pace of international justice. Over 800,000 people were killed in the Central African nation during the genocide of 1994. According to prosecutors, the trio were arrested following police searches in Brussels and the Belgian province of Hainaut late last month. Details around the suspects' charges for what role they played in the massacre was still unclear. In May, Félicien Kabuga was arrested in Paris, where he had been living under a false identity. Kabuga, a businessman from the Hutu ethnic group, is accused of being one of the main financiers of the Rwandan genocide. Meanwhile, France's top appeals court has ruled that Kabuga can be extradited to the United Nations Tribunal for trial in Tanzania. Independent analyst Dr Frederick Golooba-Mutebi has been keeping a close eye on developments and joins us now from Kampala, the capital of Uganda. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. More arrests being made in terms of people allegedly involved in the Rwandan genocide. What do we know about these 3 people in particular?
These 3 gentlemen have already been indicted for genocide crimes in Rwanda during the process that ended some years ago, which is known in Rwanda as Gacaca. Now, one of them was a former soldier. He retired from the army before the genocide, and he became a businessman, and it is claimed that he was one of the major financiers. In fact, he contributed more money to the establishment of the radio television Colleen, which was broadcasting pro-genocide messages, more than Félicien Kabuga did. Now, the other 2 were civil servants in the Ministry of Education and in the Ministry of Infrastructure. So in Rwanda, their complicity or their involvement in the genocide is well established. Now, the government of Rwanda has had to work hard to convince the Belgian government that they had solid evidence against them, or they had solid indications of their participation. And the government of Belgium did send investigators into Rwanda to investigate and find out exactly what information was held on them. And it's on that basis that they have been arrested.
So, you know, the Rwandan genocide took place in 1994, and this is 28 years later. How is it that they've been able to be on the run for this length of time?
Well, it's not surprising at all, Peter. It's not just, it's not only Belgium that has a lot of these people whom the government of Rwanda accuses of involvement in the genocide. The UK has several. There are others in the Netherlands. There are others in the United States. They are all over the world. There are so many in Africa, you'd be surprised. Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, Uganda. They are all over the place. So even African countries have not always been very cooperative in arresting these people and sending them to Rwanda.
Do we know?
Uganda next to Rwanda is supposed to have more than 100 or so.
Do we know why there's been a lack of cooperation?
I think there are different reasons. Western countries have not been willing to send these people back to Rwanda, first because they do not trust that the judiciary in Rwanda is independent enough, that the courts are independent and therefore capable of conducting impartial trials in which somebody's guilt has to be established according to international standards. African countries, some of them it's technicalities. They don't have extradition treaties with Rwanda. Some of them have decided to first take the issues through their own courts, and the court processes are very slow. So there are different reasons for this, but it's not surprising to me at all that these things are happening.
All right, so we believe that Rwanda prosecutors want to merge Mr. Barghina's case with other rebel group members. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, the thing is that Mr. Barghina was the president of the group, the political group called MRCD. Now, MRCD has an armed wing called FLN. Now, the 16 people whose cases are being merged with that of Mr. Barghina were combatants in FLN. So, as far as they're concerned, Mr. Barghina is their boss. They are accused of crimes for which he was responsible for financing, and therefore they see it as fitting that their cases should be merged with him rather than have separate trials conducted for people who are accused pretty much of the same crimes.
The Rwandan authorities are being accused of not giving Mr. Barghina access to legal representatives of his choice. What do you understand has been happening?
As far as I understand the situation, Mr. Barghina was offered local lawyers, or was offered a chance to choose a local lawyer or local lawyers, and he did willingly, and he has said as much to media. His family and supporters outside Rwanda had wanted him to be represented by lawyers coming from outside Rwanda, and therefore they are claiming that because these lawyers have not been able to go to Rwanda, therefore Mr. Barghina has not been allowed to choose his own lawyers, but actually he was, except that the lawyers are wanted, not foreigners.
All right. Do you expect more arrests in the future? Following what's happened in Belgium recently, and also you're telling us that there are probably many, many more people that the authorities have been trying to bring to justice?
The government of Rwanda has been relentless in its efforts to pursue all the people who are accused of planning and executing the genocide against the Tutsi. And I don't see them slowing down on this. Even countries that have been extremely reluctant to act on these cases, the government of Rwanda has not stopped pressurizing them to do something. So, yes, I expect there to be more arrests. The government of Rwanda itself will take its own actions, as we saw they did in the case of Mr. Barghina, and even in other cases, even the Major Sankara, the former spokesperson of Barghina's armed group, the FLN, was also arrested by the government through the efforts of the government of Rwanda. And they will continue to press Western as well as African governments to arrest. So yes, I do expect more arrests to follow. It's not clear when that might happen, but I'm sure along the way, more and more of these people are going to be arrested. In some cases, prosecuted in the very countries where they were arrested. In other cases, sent back to Rwanda, as indeed has been the case in recent years.
For example, like Mr. Kabuga, who the French government says that he'll be extradited to the United Nations Tribunal for trial in Tanzania. Do the Rwandan authorities not want to try him in Rwanda?
As far as I know, the government of Rwanda, as well as genocide survivors and Rwandans who are interested in this matter, would prefer that these people are prosecuted in Rwanda, so that at least the genocide survivors and those who experienced some of the nasty things that happened during the genocide can see the law take its course. But also the government is quite pragmatic in this on this matter. They say, look, if you can't send these people back to Rwanda, at least prosecute them in your own courts. And a lot of European countries have been doing this. In addition to sending people to Rwanda, in some cases they've been prosecuting them within Europe. It has happened in Denmark, it has happened in Sweden, it has happened in the Netherlands.